You know, sometimes a story hits you right between the eyes, and you're just left speechless. And today we're diving into one of those stories, a story that stuck with people for, well, centuries. We're talking about Abraham and Isaac. But get this, it's not just about faith, it's about family too. Intrigued.
It's a story that never gets old, does it? The ultimate test of faith, the weight of obedience. And you're right, the family dynamics add a whole other layer to unpack.
Okay, so paint the picture for us. What exactly happened between Abraham and Isaac?
Well, we're talking about Abraham, the father of many nations, right?
Yeah.
And God speaks to him, tells him to take Isaac, his son, his only son, the one he loves, to the land of Moriah.
Okay.
And then comes the hard part. God tells Abraham to offer Isaac as a burnt offering.
Ooh, hold on. A burnt offering.
Yeah.
As in his own son.
You heard right, Isaac as a sacrifice. Now imagine being in Abraham's shoes. Talk about an impossible situation.
I can't even begin to imagine. To be commanded by God to do something so unthinkable. The weight of that. What must have been going through his mind?
It's almost unfathomable. But here's the thing about burnt offerings back then. They were the ultimate act of worship, a complete and total surrender to God.
So to offer your own son, that's next level.
Absolutely. It's a complete relinquishing of everything. Your heir, your legacy, your future. It's hard to overstate the magnitude of what was being asked of him.
So what does Abraham do? Does he argue? Does he plead with God? I mean, I think I'd be doing a lot of that.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But the story says he doesn't hesitate. Not really. He gets up early the next morning, saddles his donkey, gets his men together, and starts the journey to Moriah. He even splits the wood for the offering himself.
Wow. That's something else. 3 days, right? They traveled for 3 days.
3 long days. 3 days to think about what he was being asked to do, to grapple with the enormity of the command. It's heavy stuff.
Heavy doesn't even cover it. I can't imagine the thoughts that must have been swirling in his head. Okay, so they arrive at Mount Moriah. Then what?
It's just Abraham and Isaac now. And Isaac, bless his heart, he's just a kid. He doesn't know what's about to happen. He looks up at Abraham and asks, "Father, we have the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?"
Oh, wow. It just gets me every time, knowing what's coming, you know?
Right. It's heartbreaking. And Abraham, he looks at Isaac, and I can't even imagine the pain he must have been feeling at that moment. He says, "My son, God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering."
Chilling. Every single time I hear that, it just sends shivers down my spine.
And with those words, Abraham builds the altar, he binds Isaac, lays him on top of the wood.
He's really going through with it. I mean, I know how this story ends, but still, I always get to this part and think, surely he won't.
He raises the knife.
Oh man, the tension.
Then, just as he's about to bring it down,
don't leave me hanging.
An angel of the Lord cries out from heaven and says, "Abraham, Abraham, do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me."
Talk about a last-minute intervention.
That's an understatement.
But what about the offering? They still need a lamb.
Right, and this is where the story gets even wilder. Abraham looks up and sees a ram just caught in a thicket by its horns, and he takes the ram and offers it up as a burnt offering instead of his son.
Just like that. It's like something out of a movie.
It's a powerful image, isn't it? God providing at the last possible moment. And that's why the place became known as the Lord will provide. Because even when it seems like all hope is lost, God can make a way.
What a relief that must have been for Abraham. And for Isaac, too.
You can bet on that.
You know, it's like that moment in a movie when the hero's hanging off a cliff and you're on the edge of your seat and then they're pulled up at the last second.
Right.
Except this is real life. Or, yeah, you know.
It's a powerful reminder that we're not always in control, isn't it? And that sometimes, even when things seem hopeless, there's a bigger plan unfolding.
Definitely. But it wasn't just about saving Isaac's life, was it? This whole thing, this test, it was about something much bigger.
Oh, absolutely. This is where we really see the significance of the covenant between God and Abraham. Because after this incredible act of faith, God lays out these incredible promises. We're talking countless descendants, blessings beyond measure. Abraham's going to be the father of a multitude, powerful, respected. It's a lot to take in.
That's huge.
Okay.
But it gets even bigger than that, right? Didn't God make a promise about all the nations?
You got it. And this is where it gets really interesting, because God promises Abraham that through his lineage, all the nations of the earth will be blessed. This isn't just about Abraham and his family anymore. This is about everyone.
Okay, now my mind is officially blown. That's a promise with some serious weight behind it.
Exactly. It's a promise that echoes throughout history, really. It forms the very basis for understanding God's relationship with humanity. It's a promise of redemption, a promise of blessing, a promise that extends to everyone, to all people, throughout generations. It's a big deal.
It's amazing how one event, this one intense, dramatic moment between a father and son, can have such a huge ripple effect.
Yeah.
It's still shaping how we view faith and God's promises even today. But speaking of shaping things, I got to say, I was a little surprised when, well, after this whole emotional roller coaster, the story takes kind of a sharp turn. All of a sudden, we're in genealogy land. Did that throw you off? It's like, wait, what? Now we're talking about family trees.
It does seem like a bit of a shift, doesn't it? We go from this dramatic life or death scenario to Abraham begat Isaac and Isaac begat Jacob. But you have to remember, this was a different time. Lineage was everything back then. Inheritance, social standing, even, you could argue, your connection to God. It was a really big deal.
So after everything that went down with Isaac, it kind of makes sense to figure out who else is in the picture. Who are these promises going to affect?
Exactly. And remember what we were saying earlier, it's all about legacy, about how these promises, this story, is carried forward. So the source we're looking at starts tracing that lineage.
Okay, so let's talk family tree. Who are the key players here?
Well, we start with Abraham's brother, Nahor. He had 8 children with his wife, Milcah. One of their sons was named Bethuel.
Bethuel. I feel like I should know that name.
You will. Because Bethuel has a daughter, Rebecca, and she is going to be a very important person in all of this.
Wait a minute. Are you saying what I think you're saying?
Yeah.
This is like the end of a really good TV show where they leave you hanging with a to be continued, and you're just dying to find out what happens next?
Let's just say there's a lot more to this story.
I can't wait to hear it.
Oh.
So we've got this intense story of Abraham's faith, these huge promises from God, and then boom, we're hit with this family tree. It's almost like those 3 things are like connected somehow,
It's definitely not a coincidence. I think what we're seeing here is how faith and family, they're not separate things, not back then and maybe not even now. They're woven together because faith isn't just something you feel on your own. It's something that gets passed down, shapes families, whole communities even, like a legacy.
And in this case, that legacy starts with Abraham, right? What he did, what he believed. It wasn't just about him. It was about his kids, his grandkids, everyone who came after him.
Exactly. God's promise to Abraham to bless all nations through him, it's a promise that gets passed down through his family line. And that family line, well, that's where this genealogy comes in. It helps us trace those connections, see how it all fits together.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Like, we're all part of this huge story, this chain that stretches back through time. And our families, our beliefs, they're all part of it.
And just like in Abraham's story, those beliefs, they have an impact. They get passed down, they shape who we become, and they influence the world around us. It makes you think, doesn't it, about what we've inherited, the legacies that have been handed down to us.
It really does. And maybe even more importantly, it makes you think about the legacy we're passing on, the impact our own faith, our own choices will have on the generations to come.
That's a powerful thought, isn't it? It's a reminder that we're not just living for ourselves. We're part of something much bigger, something that will outlive us all.
Wow. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, haven't we? From the depths of Abraham's faith to, well, the branches of his family tree.
It's been quite a journey, and it all circles back to that one central theme, the enduring power of faith, family, and how those 2 forces intertwine to shape our lives and the world around us.
It definitely gives you a lot to think about. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the story of Abraham, Isaac, and the surprising significance of a family tree. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep those deep thoughts flowing.
Thank you for spending this time with us. Toby, Eleanor, and our team of researchers are working hard to produce more episodes. If you value what we're doing here, please consider subscribing and sharing the word. Additionally, our podcast, RSS, and Patreon links can be found below. Listener support is what makes our work possible. Join us next time for another deep dive. God bless.